I have to ask, what was Johnny like to work with?
He's such a pleasure. He's such a pleasure to work with. He's even better than I could have imagined him to be, which is saying something.
Is he funny?
He is. I noticed when I got to set that everybody smiles when he walks on set, and I know it's a good sign. He looks everybody in the eye, he takes time with everybody, and I think that's special. He's a special human being.
Hello everybody. I want to get right to the point. I don't like long introductions on videos, but I did want to say that since the feedback was so positive for my video on Amber Heard's friends, I thought it would be cool to do a really long video on Amber Heard herself. One of my challenges was trying to figure out how to make a video that would have some new, Easter eggs, as they're called, for those of you who know actually probably more about this than I do, a number of you do. But also at the same time a video that would appeal to everybody, a general audience as well, people that were not so familiar. So I did some sleuthing on YouTube and I came up with some interviews with Amber Heard. So just to start basic and get our bearings, if you're coming to this brand new, who is Amber Heard? Why is she significant? Well, she is an actress and she was married to Johnny Depp for a bit and then they divorced in, God, I should know this, it was 2016, right? I think it was finalized in 2017, but anyway. And she accused him of domestic violence, and then he has sued her in various courts and is accusing her of a hoax and of making it up. And so if you want to know my opinion on all of that, look at my other videos because I do explain. But with this, I just wanted to start with just a couple of interview clips where she's talking about when she first met Johnny Depp and when she first got to know him. And as I've said before in my other documentary clips, that she was chosen by Johnny Depp to be his love interest in this movie, The Rum Diary, that he was producing, okay? And so this is where they first met, in this audition, and nothing happened between them while they were filming. They both say, and I believe that, but when they got a couple of years later, when they reunited to do the press for The Rum Diary, then that's when they started dating. So anyway, I want to look at a couple of clips here. This is a red carpet interview that Amber Heard did very shortly after they started dating, because they started dating at the beginning of the press tour and the premieres for The Rum Diary. And this was actually a part of that, all right? This was a premiere for The Rum Diary. And so she's discussing how she found out that she'd gotten the part and a bit about their relationship. So we're going to look at these two different interviews. The first is a red carpet interview, and then the second is a press interview for The Rum Diary. And I'll talk about some things in a moment.
I was elated when I got the call. Johnny called me himself on my cell phone. You got it, kid. And I think it was relief and joy. What more could it be?
You're obviously a big fan of the book originally, and when I first read it, it didn't immediately grab me as something that was filmic, and obviously it very much is. Did you? And I gather you actually wrote a letter to the producer. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I wrote to Bruce.
What did you say in a letter to?
Well, I can't tell you that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But, I did, it's always it's slightly nerve-wracking when you do an adaptation, because there's this idea that, it's never as good as the book. And that's sometimes true, because it is difficult to compete with one's own imagination. It's difficult.
It's especially difficult, we know, Amber, for you, since your imagination formulates all kinds of different untrue things. Okay, no, I'm not going to be snide through the whole thing. Okay. So what do I want you to notice here? What are we going to talk about here at the beginning? Well, one thing, and this may seem in some ways like a trivial thing, but I'm trying for this documentary to come up with some things that haven't been discussed much, on Twitter and among people who are really interested in this. And so I'm sure somebody has mentioned this, but I think it's really interesting that her voice, Amber changed her voice over the course of the years, because if we look at this interview, for instance, and a number of her interviews that she did early in her career, and even up through 2000, this interview was in 2011, She speaks in a very sort of stereotypically feminine and a bit higher pitched voice, and her mannerisms are very sort of delicate, maybe almost a little sheepish in some ways, very, very soft, very, very feminine, and the voice is that way as well.
And that's a T.
Well, I can't tell you that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But, you know, I did, it's always it's slightly nerve-wracking when you do an adaptation.
But I want you to look at a few more recent videos. The first, this is a promotional video that she did as a UN ambassador, right? But anyway, let's watch it for a second. Notice the difference in the voice, notice the difference in inflection, notice the difference in the way that she carries herself and her gait and everything.
I will respect your rights regardless of who you are. I will uphold your rights even when I disagree with you.
Now, I'm going to play some more in a minute, but it's a very sort of, for a woman, almost a kind of a baritone voice. And you can tell that she's really trying to push her voice to an unnatural register downward because it's kind of scratchy. And when she speaks in the upper register that she was speaking in, the more upper register, she doesn't speak in a scratchy way. But here, it's different. Now, let's look at this next clip. And I've shown this to you before, but it's very interesting. This is a promotional PSA that she did for domestic violence, or against domestic violence. I guess the other would have been more appropriate for her, right? But against domestic violence. And she did this for Girl Gaze, for Amanda de Cadenet's company, and they promoted it and everything. So anyway, she's talking about Johnny Depp here, and she's accusing him of domestic violence, even though she doesn't use his name. But again, notice how she carries herself and speaks, and the tone and stuff is different than the initial clips that we saw.
How is this happening to me? You know, I'm strong, smart. I'm not a victim to my detriment. I guess there was a lot of shame attached to that label of victim.
I mean, very deep. I guess there was a lot of shame attached to that. Okay. And very much a much more assertive posture, kind of in your face, right? In the earlier stuff, she's very kind of like coquettish and delicate and aw, you know, but in this, it's more kind of masculine in a way, for lack of a better word, and so forth. Now, those of you who are not familiar with the subject of Amber Heard, you might be saying, this is ridiculous. Why are you nitpicking her voice, right? But it is, as you'll see when we get into this documentary, my discussion of her, it is indicative, it can be indicative, among many other signs, that she has a kind of a problematic or really dualistic personality, right? One is very different than the other, and she's also she's very fake in a way in how she promotes herself. Again, not unusual for actors, but I'm doing a character study here. Now, you might also say, well, of course, she's going to speak differently because in the earlier videos you played, she's doing a lighthearted interview, but in these videos that you've just played, she's talking about domestic violence and she's talking about serious issues, and so of course she's going to speak that way. Yeah, but look at this. This is an interview that she did with Access Hollywood. A number of you have seen this, promoting The Stand, and it's supposed to be a kind of a lighthearted interview, and notice though how different it is from how she was in the past.
I'll believe it when the year is actually over. You know, there's a few weeks left. I put nothing past 2020.
I'll believe it when the year is actually over. Ha 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 ha. Right? Again, if that was her natural voice, I'm not saying it's bad, okay? But it is pretty dramatic. Now, what's interesting, I guess the reason why this jumped out at me, and I guess why I'm starting this video with a seemingly kind of trivial detail before I am going to get into some deeper stuff, but I guess the reason why it jumped out at me is because I'm really interested in the story of a woman named Elizabeth Holmes. And some of you might be familiar with her. There was an HBO documentary called The Inventor, made about her. There's a movie in production, or will be in production, with Jennifer Lawrence playing her. Who is she? She is the founder of a company, a now defunct company, but a company called Theranos. And she dropped out of Stanford at the age of 19, dropped out of college, dropped out of Stanford at the age of 19, and she founded a company. And she wanted to found a biomedical company that would basically replace the standard blood draw, like when you go to the doctor or something and you get your blood drawn, replace that with just a pinprick. The idea being that, you know, her company was going to invent a kind of a machine, some kind of testing device that would just be able to test for a lot of things based on a drop of blood instead of blood draws. Okay, and she had some other ideas as well that the company's working on. So it turns out, though, that after she founded this company and several years into it, even though, you know, she'd gotten a lot of fame, she'd gotten a lot of investors, because it's very rare to have women, really high-ranking women founders, female founders of big companies. Yes, there are female CEOs, but it's pretty rare for whatever reason, for women to found really successful companies. There's not a lot of them. And so having done this, and done this at such a young age, she got a lot of notoriety, she got a lot of investors, and she ended up being worth, with her company, worth over $1 billion. And so she was billed as, you know, one of the first self-made female billionaires. Now, what happened was, for Elizabeth, is, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a moment while I'm talking about this, and it's such an interesting story. I plan to do a video on it, actually. But what happened with Elizabeth is that once she got into this business, she realized, and her team, her people that she hired, realized that their objectives for this medical device were basically impossible. They couldn't find a way, and for reasons I won't go into, whatever, you can look it up. There's a great book about it. But it didn't work. And so what did she do? Well, she apparently has a sociopathic personality, because what she did, and this guy who was working under her, that she was in cahoots with, what they did is they started falsifying the whole testing procedure that the entire company was built around. And I'm not going to even get into like how they would do it. It's a crazy story. Like I said, I'll put it in another video. But basically putting people's lives at risk, because people were getting back test results that were inaccurate at times because of the way these things were being handled. And it was just a lie. Like the company ended up being premised on a lie, because their central medical device, their central innovation that they had created, she said that her company had created, it didn't work. And what happened was she continued, well, even till just a few years ago, she continued to get all of this great press. She was on the cover of Time magazine. She was given awards, at Harvard. She was hanging out sometimes with Hollywood people or whatever at these galas, taking a private jet everywhere, right? But it was all a fraud. It was all a lie. And so eventually what happened is someone caught on to it, or several people, both within and outside the company, basically blew the whistle on it. And the company was dissolved, and now she is being charged. She's been charged by the government with all kinds of, quote-unquote white-collar crimes, and she might spend some time in prison. Her trial is coming up a bit later, probably postponed by, due to COVID, like everything else. But what is my point is that a lot of people have talked about Elizabeth Holmes as this sociopathic personality, because she is so charming, and she was able to charm the pants off of some really shrewd, really powerful men who ended up supporting her. I'm not saying she slept with them or whatever, but ended up supporting her and being on her board of directors and really promoting and pushing, her business and among their friends and the public. And it turns out, that none of them saw through her, and it was a scam. But she has this charming sociopathic personality. And so what's interesting, and this is where I'm going with this, is that one of the main things that people talk about with Elizabeth Holmes is that she intentionally changed her voice when she started this company. She decided, this is what people have surmised, because you can definitely tell a difference. There's a little bit of video out there, not much, but there's a little bit of video out there here and there of her speaking in her higher voice, and it's definitely different than the tone of voice, a deep baritone that she had ended up adopting. And so the idea, the thinking is that when she founded this company, she thought that a way to make people take her more seriously was to speak. And there's actually studies that show this, but that people do take people more seriously when they have a deeper and or more masculine voice. So what I want to do, but it's a weird thing. And again, it can be a sign, not necessarily, but it can be a sign that there's kind of something going on with someone, a kind of narcissistic or double two-faced personality, or however we want to think about it, right? So let's look at this clip of her. Now, someone has put this together. It's a voice comparison. And so what they're going to play for you first is her well, not her normal voice, but the voice that she has adopted and has used for years, especially in a professional setting, versus what a computer program has surmised her real voice sounds like based on just the little bit of snippets on the internet of her getting into a real voice mode. And this is not just speculation. I mean, people who've gone to college with her, former teachers, people like that have, come out in interviews and said that she did not talk that way, that the voice is definitely an affectation. So I just want to look at this, and then we'll get back to Amber Heard. But again, it just kind of reminded me a bit in this respect of Amber.
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies that can change their lives. Every person should have the ability to get that type of test, because if you understand that early that you're at risk, there's a lot more that you can do about it. And we'd like to see a world in which every person gets access to this type of basic testing, and the types of tests that are done are ones that provide insight into the onset of disease in time to do something. People don't even know.
Now, sorry, this is the real voice that you're now going to hear, or what the computer program speculates is the real voice.
That they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies that can change their lives. Every person should have the ability to get that type of test.
So anyway, that's interesting. And again, just something that I noticed with Amber Heard, and I'm trying to come up with some things that maybe people have not thought about or talked about so much, especially those of you who followed the case. Now, to get into something, kind of a broader question, it's not just about her voice. It's about the way that she seems to have a very different side to her personality than the one that she projects. And I know that this is, to a degree, it's normal for everyone. None of us are completely ourselves or genuine all the time. We all have different masks that we have to wear, being, human. And the philosophers talk about this. I'm not going to get into it, but maybe someday and talk a little philosophy. But it's, the fact that as we go through life, because we are affected by the opinions of others, and people are constantly, as we move through life, we're constantly receiving the judgments of others, even in just the way they look at us. We become self-conscious, and we have to take on masks at times, right? Like, you can't go to work, and if you're in a bad mood and your boss says, "How do you feel today?" and you're like, "Well, I feel like shit, and I fucking hate you." No, so it's not two-faced not to tell your boss that you hate him or her, right? But when we're talking about people like, I hate to say it, but people like Amber Heard, or like this Elizabeth Holmes woman, or various other people with personality disorders, particularly of the narcissistic and sociopathic types, then, one of the hallmarks of those kinds of disorders is that there's a greater variance between the mask that the person wears and the reality of that person or the person's other side, right? Like, even when I get mad, I'm not really that different from who I am right now, honestly. But Amber, the way that people described her, Johnny, the people around Johnny that testified for him, and so forth, it was like she would go from this classy, and very sort of kind of sweet or affable, friendly, gung-ho type personality to angry and paranoid and crazy and violent, especially when it sounds like she drank, and it sounds like this sort of Jekyll and Hyde thing, right? So anyway, what I wanted to note that, because I want you to look at this footage, and a number of you have seen pictures from this, but I want you to look at this footage of Amber the day that she went to the LA court and publicly tried to file a restraining order, or tried to get a restraining order against Johnny Depp, and was accusing him of domestic violence, and was sporting that, what a lot of us believe to be fake bruise on her eye, or at least not something that Johnny Depp inflicted on her. And if you think that I'm wrong about that, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, look at my other videos, okay? I'm not just some Johnny Depp fan defending him. Like, I'm not even actually that much of a Johnny Depp fan. But He's good. I like his movies and stuff. But my point is that there is a basis for believing this, and if you're not familiar with the case, look at my other videos. All right, but anyway, here's my point. Notice how she looks very, very different than what we have been seeing. And of course, I wouldn't expect her to be happy when she's filing a restraining order or anything like that. But this it looks like a very carefully crafted, produced look, down to the hair, the way her hair, and we've talked about this online, but her hair is very intentionally like ironed out, very flat. It never looks like that, and it's not how it looks naturally. And she's wearing this very demure, almost funereal, like a funeral dress, but also kind of like something like a, Jackie Kennedy, like a first lady would wear, right? She has none of her traditional like rings on or jewelry, and she has this sort of downtrodden look on her face. Again, I would not expect her to be happy, but it just comes across as being very produced, and of course, a number of us believe that it was. So let's look at this. It's yet another face of Amber, so to speak.
Hey, Amber.
Amber, did Johnny give you that bruise on your face?
Amber,
did Johnny beat you up?
Are you doing okay?
Stop.
Did Johnny brutalize you?
Stop.
Amber?
You guys, she showed a lot of courage.
Are you okay, Amber? You look upset.
Move back, guys.
How are you doing?
You're going the wrong way.
Get her through.
Amber.
Amber, how are you feeling?
Amber, are you
Amber, are you going to go to the doctor?
Are you okay?
Are you going to go to the hospital, Amber?
Excuse me. Hey.
Are you worried that Johnny might do that again?
Amber, what do you have to say to Johnny? Are you getting support from any of Johnny's family? Thank you.
Best of luck, Amber. Good job, Amber.
And there's Raquel Pennington there. All right, and then notice here, and I'm not going to play her deposition because so many of you have seen it. If you're curious, you want to see her basically acting like a spoiled brat. Very bizarre behavior at times. Just Google or look up on YouTube her deposition. But anyway, look at this is just an image from the deposition. And what I wanted to point out to you is that at this deposition, she's got this flat ironed hair again. This is the only time, and I've seen a lot of pictures and footage and everything of Amber Heard in a natural setting as well, not just in a Hollywood setting, but just out and about or whatever. And her hair never looks flat like this. It's been intentionally ironed so that it looks kind of, pitiful or whatever, just hanging there and flat. Her hair never looks this way. It's not natural. And then you look at what she's wearing. She has this very similar to the type of thing she was wearing earlier to go to parade around in front of the courthouse. She's wearing this very demure, button-up white shirt, a blouse. It looks. It's like something she never dresses this way ordinarily, doesn't. And again, I don't begrudge someone for dressing properly to do something legal or court, but I'm just pointing out that she's very aware of her image, and she definitely tries to promote a particular type of image given the circumstance. And you can see that mean look on her face. She does have a very nasty side. So Johnny Depp talked about in his deposition or a witness statement or something, I can't remember which, he talked about how even when Amber would be really violent and crazy with him, that many times as soon as they would get out, like she could be beating on him in the car or whatever, beating him up and screaming at him and throwing shit, but then as soon as they would get out of the car for a premiere or to walk the red carpet, he said that she was very charming, exceedingly charming. And yet there was a coldness there. And I think that in some of the footage you can detect that coldness. This is very subtle, but if you pay really close attention, notice how she's kind of cold. We see a sort of a different side of her here at this premiere.
Hey, Amber. Amber, do you mind signing?
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you. Great. Thank you so much.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Just was watching Rum Dyer last night.
Yeah, we did. We watched it last night. You like it? Yeah, it's funny. Thanks.
So again, it's really subtle. You know, now that I look at it, I'm kind of like, well, that's not really that interesting. But I don't know. It's just, and of course, everybody gets in bad moods and moods where they're not in the mood for things, right? I'm often with my job not in the mood for certain things that I find, you know, kind of like boring or redundant or whatever. And so again, this in isolation, I'm not saying it's a big deal, but it's just interesting to see the different sides of her, to see the different sides of anyone, even if she weren't, you know, pathological as some of us believe. It's still interesting. Now I wanted to look at this next clip is from some kind of charity that Johnny and Amber worked for, where they distributed hearing aids to those who couldn't afford them. I think they might have been in a foreign country too. But Amber is really crying and everything. We don't often see that side of her, but very emotional, or at least appearing to be, you know, emotional. But I wanted to show this because it's a little bit different than maybe what we normally see. I'm not saying it's like super genuine, although I don't doubt that she has lots of moments of, you know, genuine human goodness. And I never want to caricature anyone, even if I do think that they have conducted themselves in a sociopathic way. But let's look at this.
Amber Heard in tears. The actress and her husband, Johnny Depp, helped hand out hundreds of hearing aids to those in need Thursday in Brazil.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of seeing that moment where you're testing the hearing aid, you're testing it, you're saying bop, 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 you're testing it, and that moment where they light up because they hear.
Yeah, the eyes.
That moment, it's worth everything.
And Amber was obviously touched by the experience. She told the Associated Press the day was, quote, moving, to say the least.
To be able to help these kids, to be able to help these people is amazing.
This is the good stuff.
The couple was south of the border with Johnny's star-studded band, the Hollywood Vampires. The group was performing at the Rock in Rio Festival. At least one other member of that group, Alice Cooper, helped out with the hearing aid event.
It's nice to have some Johnny Depp footage in there. Isn't he so sweet? Like I said, I'm not even particularly a Johnny Depp fan, but through the course of following this case, I've really gotten more interested in him as a person. He seems like such a sweetheart. So I wanted to get more now into something that some of us have been talking about online. And again, this might seem like a trivial thing to those of you who don't pay much attention to this, but one of the ways in which, and I talk about this in the Elon Musk video too, because Amber dated and manipulated Elon, one of the primary points of attraction for her, for Johnny Depp and Elon Musk, in addition to the drop-dead gorgeous face, I mean, I'm sorry, but I mean, that's what I think, is the fact that she really presents herself as an intellectual. She has taken, on many occasions, she's talked about how much she loves to read, that she's a voracious reader, she's constantly reading, she says, I don't watch TV, and so forth. And there certainly is nothing wrong with that, loving to read. And Johnny Depp has talked about in some interviews that was one of the things that really intellectually attracted him to her. And then she said in interviews that she and Elon shared that too. And Elon, and when he was trying to get a date with her originally through a mutual friend, he said to that friend that one of the things he was really impressed with is that Amber was a big fan of the writer Ayn Rand. So my point being that this is something that she really, not only does she say that she reads a lot, and I think I don't know. I can't say if she reads as much as she says or not or whatever. We've been debating that online. But the point is, she really does make a point of it to a degree that seems somewhat calculated and somewhat fake. I'm not saying that she doesn't read a lot. I don't know. But I'm saying that the way that she presents this as a primary facet of her character is rather unusual and showy and kind of pretentious. And I say that as somebody who reads a lot. I probably read as much as Amber pretends to. No, no, I don't know about her. But, and so she'll talk about how, like for instance, and look at this. We'll look at this picture in a minute. But well, I guess we can look at it now. But anyway, this is a picture of her from the Aquaman set. And apparently this is just normal for her, that when she is in the makeup chair for hours getting her hair or her makeup done, that she will sit there and read these really big intellectual books. To me, it seems rather uncomfortable. It seems rather unlikely or rather strange that you could really get a good reading session in with people working all around you, and you're having to, you know, move your eyes and your head in certain ways and your body and everything. I don't know. It seems a little suspect to me. But at any rate, I wanted to get into this a little bit more because I found an interview with her and with James Franco, and I think that it sheds some light on where this emphasis on reading, or at least this emphasis on being perceived to read on set for hours a day, whether she does it or not, comes from. So we're gonna look at that. So we're gonna look at some of those clips in a minute where she's talking about reading. I wanted to first look at some interview clips where she's basically using some big words. Nothing wrong with that. I do it a lot, right? But presenting herself in a very, very sort of intellectualized manner, even in this interview from 2011. And so we'll just watch it a bit, and I think it kind of speaks for itself.
That being said, Bruce did something with the screenplay that's special. He didn't set out to change the book, and he didn't set out to compete with the book. He created something that kind of augments the integrity of the original.
It augments the integrity of the material. I don't know. It's, again, I use sophisticated words at times. People probably think I sound pretentious as well. But this is how she presents herself. And so the point I'm trying to make is to what degree it's genuine or not genuine, or annoying or not annoying, or great or whatever. This is one of the things that really attracted Johnny Depp and Elon Musk to her.
Intention, what Hunter S. Thompson set out to do when he wrote this story. It's sweet, and it's got integrity, and it's an earnest kind of coming of age story. And Bruce, who wrote a wonderful book in much the same vein, I felt would handle this project so well, and he really did. I mean, he created a screenplay that did justice to it without trying to take from it or compete with it.
Sure. And you're a big Withnail fan as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite line?
All right, I'm going to replay this one little part. I want you to notice what's happening here, because I think this is kind of interesting. The interviewer asks her if she's a big Withnail fan. I don't know if he's talking, I don't know who that is. I looked it up, couldn't find it. I don't know if he's talking about a writer of a book or a director or whatever. But I guess, but he's making a reference here, apparently, to something that Amber Heard has claimed to, I guess, that she's a big fan of. And he's going to ask her, well, you're a big fan, what's your favorite part, or what's your favorite line? And notice how she looks just slightly annoyed with him, that he's, unintentionally, in fact, kind of calling her on her shit, because the way she doesn't answer the question. She basically says, oh, I can't think of one or whatever, but she seems kind of a little bit irritated if you kind of read through the lines there with him. I think it's kind of interesting. Maybe she felt like she was being called on her bullshit a little.
You're a big Withnail fan as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite line? Or a favourite scene?
No, but no, I should get one though, just to be able to.
Have you been asked that a lot?
I don't. But I loved the movie. I love Madness. I love it when.
Does it make sense, like, from because it's a really English feeling thing, and as a Texan, I wonder if it, like, watching it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. What they're talking about. I don't know if I'm the best Texan, but I have a sense of humor. Yeah, sure. I can at times have a sense of humor, so it made sense to me. It appealed to me.
She's very charming, right? I know people disagree or can disagree, but you can certainly see the appeal to a lot of people. Now, I told you, I kind of teased you and told you that there was this interview with James Franco that I think sheds some light on where this whole production about reading constantly on set, and reading these big books and stuff that people will talk about this. James Wan, the director of Aquaman, famously said in an interview, very admiringly of her, said that, every time I see her on set, she's got this huge tome, a really big book, right? And so anyway, in this interview, this is an interview with Amber Heard, James Franco, and someone else, who worked on the Adderall Diaries. And so I just want to play some of it and then kind of break down for you what I think is interesting here. It gives us a little insight, I think, into this topic.
Cool.
Often when people are working together, everyone has their own quirks and ways that they like to work. For all three of you, how did you sort of gel on set? Did you guys have similar work traits, or does someone like blasting music and the other guys are like, no?
I don't know. I mean, Pam and I went to film school together, and we'd worked together before. I guess I'd acted in stuff with her, and so I guess we're kind of used to each other.
Mm-hmm. We have the same bad habits.
What are they? I can't. And then I actually worked with Amber before on Pineapple Express, so I don't know. Everyone kind of gelled, I think. Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? Like sometimes someone wants very quiet, and then other people are like, you know, I've heard that's the way you like to work. It needs to be silence. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm totally fucking with you.
I mean, I can speak to that, I guess, as the director. I got one of the most interesting things I think about directing is that you get to learn everyone's different acting style, and that includes how they want to prep, how much they care about props and wardrobe, what they like to do right before a scene starts. So it's an interesting thing, sort of balancing these different things, and you know, everyone got along really well. We had a great time. It wasn't at all like a fighty or dark side. It was very easy, but within that there are like shades of difference, and like James tends to listen to music and...
I did? On this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're usually... Like, James wants to sort of relax and then come onto the set right before and sort of go into it as relaxed as possible. But everyone has their different styles, and I think it's really cool to be able to see that and learn from it and sort of try and balance and take care of everybody.
Cool. Do you have a certain way that you like to work?
I don't know. I guess it's, you know, I've never directed or anything, so it's hard to see it as any other way than just how I've always done it. But I guess I kind of tend to check out. I bury myself in a book or something and kind of disconnect from what's going on around me and then go into it. But yeah, I guess that's what I do.
Yeah, you guys are both big readers.
It's true.
Like we'd be setting up lights around them, and they're both just like on the couch reading their super intellectual.
By the way, this hasn't changed. I did a set visit on Oz, and we were watching him like half the time in between takes. He's just sitting there reading. Yeah. So this has been an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, for a while now.
Now let me break down for you a few of the things that I think are interesting here. The first is that Amber talks about how she actually says that, you know, one of the reasons why she reads on set is to kind of disconnect from everything around her, which is fine. I know there were some of you speculating, we were talking about this online on Twitter, that it was almost a kind of a depersonalization or alienating thing, in that she didn't want to have to interact with the people around her while they're doing her hair and her makeup and stuff. And that one of you even said that you had talked to someone who worked with her on set, and that they said nobody liked her, like hanging out with her or whatever. You know, again, I'm an introvert. When I'm not making videos, I actually am too. So I know what it's like to try to, you know, use books or whatever as a way of kind of distancing yourself so you don't feel obligated to talk to people. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But what's interesting here to me is that they talk about how, you know, Amber and James Franco were reading a lot. But what's very interesting is that Franco mentions that he and Amber met and worked together on the film The Pineapple Express, which was a film from years and years back. It was one of the earliest films that both Franco and her did. They were both a lot younger. And then it's mentioned that Franco has been doing this reading thing where he makes a point of just reading constantly when he's on set, that he's been doing that really since the beginning. He's been doing that, as he says, for a long time. It's a long established thing. And I have to wonder, because we've talked about how we believe Amber Heard does have a personality disorder, or several. Johnny Depp said in court testimony that she had been diagnosed by their shared therapist or counselor as classic toxic narcissist. He called her toxic, narcissistic, borderline sociopathic. So those are several different disorders that are very problematic personality disorders. But anyway, one of the hallmarks of some of those personality disorders is the careful maintenance of an exterior that is not only a false exterior that's impressive to people, they're always trying to really impress people, but also they tend to mimic. Because people who have personality disorders, like the ones that I've mentioned here, and I please, you know, don't get upset if you have one or you know someone who has one. I know these are not, it's not universal, not every person. There's different shades of it. I'm not saying you're all like Amber Heard. But one of the hallmarks for many people with these personality disorders is a real drive to mimic. Because they feel an emptiness inside. They are on some level conscious or unconscious, but they do feel that they're not really there as a person, even more than the rest of us are not here, so to speak. And so they're constantly looking for people that they can mimic because they don't really know who to be. They don't really know who they are. It's not like an organic, intrinsic thing that's coming from within. I'm sorry, an organic, intrinsic thing that's coming from within, like with most of us. From them, it's coming from outside and constructing those false masks or whatever. And so, you know, a number of you have talked about how when she started dating Johnny Depp, and in fact, her assistant, her former personal assistant, we know testified to this, that when she started dating Johnny Depp, she started engaging in this mimicry of him. And so, you know, she started dressing in a different way that he would like. She started taking on certain interests and hobbies that he would like. He said the same thing in his court deposition. And then some of you have even noticed that her handwriting mimics him, that the notes that she passed out to her supporters at the UK trial had the same very strange handwriting quirks that Johnny Depp has. And so my point here is that it's very possible to me, I think, if we want to look for the root of where this strong desire to present herself, especially on set, is constantly reading, even when it looks like it might not be the most comfortable or practical thing, or that she might not be doing it to the extent that she says she is, but where this desire comes from is a kind of a mimicry. That when she was young, she worked with James Franco, and James Franco has always presented himself, whether it's genuine or not, it may be genuine, but presented himself as being Mr. Uber intellectual. And so I'm sure, you know, she looked up to that. He was the big guy on set for that film. She was younger, and so on and so forth. And she and she probably looked at that and thought, wow, I'm going to pick that up. That's the kind of impression that I want to make, that I'm this intellectual who's constantly reading, you know, even when it's uncomfortable. All right, so I don't know, you know, some of you are, especially those of you who are new to this, are probably like, you know, these are some weird things, there's some strange things you're pointing out, but I'm trying to provide some extra stuff here for the people who know a lot about Amber Heard and about this case. And so if you're new to this, I really, again, encourage you to check out my videos that explain the basics of this case and what's going on. You might find those more interesting to start off with. Anyway, so and I wanted to look, going back to the Rum Diary interview just a little bit more, I want to now look at a clip where she talks about Johnny Depp and their shared love of reading, and that he even recommended a book for her to read and so forth. I just think it's kind of interesting what she says and how she carries herself. And of course, remember, at this point in this interview, no one is supposed to know that they're dating, and they've just recently started dating. This was a part of the press tour where they started, you know, hooking up or dating or whatever. So she's not speaking of him as her boyfriend, but you can tell kind of the way that she acts.
And Johnny, I know Johnny's very... And Johnny, I know Johnny's a very keen, passionate reader, and so are you. Did you have any kind of like sharing book tips?
Yeah.
What's on Johnny's reading list?
We have very similar taste in literature, poetry.
What are you reading at the moment?
I am reading East of Eden.
Oh wow, Steinbeck.
A classic.
A classic.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in forever.
You've read it before?
Yeah, and somebody close to me suggested I reread it, and I'm discovering all sorts of new things.
Yeah.
Now, she's a little coy there about who suggested it, but I think we can assume that Johnny Depp suggested it, since, you know, they bonded over this shared passion for reading and so forth, and had just recently started dating. And so the book that he recommended to her, that she said she was reading based on his recommendation, is the book East of Eden. I'm looking it up right now. It ended up, I'm also sorry that this camera shakes occasionally. If you all knew how basic and kind of ridiculous my filming setup is in here. Maybe I'll show you before I get my new equipment, which I'm hoping to get soon. But I'm filming this on an iPhone 5, a cracked iPhone 5, because I don't like updating technology. I will basically use something until it falls apart or becomes obsolete or whatever. So this is being filmed on a cracked iPhone 5. And I have, you know, no proper lights or anything. I've just got carefully positioned lamps all around. And you're probably like, yeah, we can tell that. But anyway, you know, sometimes lo-fi is good. I'm not trying to compete with the hi-fi people, but I am gonna improve my game as we go along. Okay, but East of Eden, this novel that she's reading that Johnny Depp recommended to her, it's by John Steinbeck, and I believe that the movie starred James Dean, and that there's actually like a character, it's kind of about rebellious characters, perhaps. Now, the major themes of this book are the capacity for self-destruction and of guilt versus freedom, and even depravity. And so it features characters who are really at war with themselves, at war with others, very aggressive characters, characters who want to be free but also are wrapped up in their own self-destruction. It's just, you know, it's kind of interesting knowing what we know about Amber Heard and about Johnny Depp and how their relationship would go, and interesting themes here. So, and the book was adapted for cinema in 1955 and starred James Dean. And so, you know, the whole idea of James Dean, you know, too cool for school, rebel without a cause, all of that. And I think this is very much the kind of character that Johnny Depp sees him as. You know, he liked for his, in fact, Amber Heard's parents, his in-laws, they called him their son ex-law. No, son out. They called him their son outlaw instead of son-in-law, you know, son outlaw. Okay, so it's part of his character, his ethos, and Amber Heard's as well, as we know, to an excessive and problematic degree, right? Fiercely independent, aggressive, violent, crazy, self-destructive, right? So anyway, I just think it's interesting that that's one of the things that they bonded over initially, is this book, to the extent where he wanted her to read it again so they could discuss it and everything. It's kind of symbolic. Or when we talk about Amber Heard appearing to be intelligent and well-read and using sophisticated vocabulary and so forth, and really presenting herself as this very intellectual person, you know, some of you were debating online as to whether she's intelligent or not. And it's what's interesting is that it really depends on which interview you see, and that's not actually completely normal. Most people, especially people who are public figures, whether actors or politicians or media people, they actually do have a pretty consistent media image and ethos and a consistent way of handling themselves on camera. And one of the things, and I don't really know what to make of it, but one of the things that's interesting about Amber Heard's situation is that you can watch some interviews with her. There are some where she comes off, like in the Rum Diary interview that we just watched, she comes off as being very calm and self-possessed and very sharp, and the ideas and the things that come out of her mouth seem fairly organic. But then you can find other interviews, quite a few of them actually, where she's basically kind of babbling a word salad and she's not really saying much of anything. She's kind of stringing some big words together and stuff, and stumbling over her words and seeming very unsure of herself. And so it's interesting. I still don't know what to think. I do think that she is intelligent enough to have interested Johnny Depp and interested Elon Musk and a number of other people, so I do think that there is an intellectualism there, but at the same time, you know, I understand the argument some of you are making that you think it's definitely overrated. So I wanted to look at some footage where she's stumbling over her words more. This footage kind of indicates that maybe she's not as intellectual as she presents, or I don't know, but it's just interesting to see. It's definitely, this footage was not her best moment. Now, I mentioned that she was a UN ambassador and for human rights, The UN, even after those tapes came out where she's admitting to beating up Johnny Depp and being awful to him and instigating fights and everything, the UN has kept her. So they're standing by their gal, like most of the media. It's very strange. But at any rate, this is a banquet that was given in her honor some time ago. I'm not sure when, maybe a year or two ago, but a banquet that was given in her honor, in honor of her work in Syria for the United Nations and her international charity work and so forth. And we're just going to watch a bit of it just to give you some idea of some of the notoriety that she's achieved as an activist, as a human rights activist. And we'll talk about more of that in a minute. But also notice in the interview segment where she's being interviewed at this event, she does come across more problematically. She stumbles over her words a lot and doesn't really make a whole lot of sense or have a lot of substance to what she's saying. So we'll look at this for a bit.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
You know, I'm in the U.S., don't have my life, I don't have to think about that. Hoping to this count.
I just recently got acquainted with Sam's organization. I knew a little bit about the conflict. By comparison to what I understand now, most importantly, its impact, I knew nothing in comparison. And that's part of my biggest takeaway from this trip is the indelible mark left on my soul after spending a week on the grounds here, seeing from the operating room to the Zatari, the refugee camp, to the rehabilitation centers with whom SAMS is partnering in official and non-official ways in order to procure for its beneficiaries the most holistic, well-rounded, and thorough rehabilitation and medical assistance possible. Procure for its beneficiaries the most holistic, well-rounded, and thorough rehabilitation and medical assistance possible.
Sorry, I was exaggerating my facial expressions, but it's just kind of funny to sit here and watch her, especially kind of the eyes darting around and the I know we've all had our bad moments, but I'm just saying, most people are pretty consistently present themselves, especially when they're in the public arena, especially if they're attending a banquet in their honor for an organization that they're representing. She's not so eloquent when it comes to this.
I think that's the biggest impact for me is seeing the fight, the spirit.
I have Syrian friends that have immigrated to the United States, and I have become friends with an increasingly large Syrian family. That is, as more and more members of said family move, my Syrian family has grown and grown and grown. And I think this holiday, I was having a family dinner at my friend's house, and I remember I raised my glass and I toasted to my big extended Syrian family for adopting the American, and that's how I feel. And somebody said to me today, it's amazing you're doing this. Thank you for doing this. You don't have any, you don't have any family relations in Syria. It's not, you have no dog in this fight. And I said, well, on the contrary, I not only feel like this is my family, it's my chosen family, but I think this is a bigger issue. It's not just about a political issue. It's not just about Syria. It's not just about the conflict or those of whom are displaced or negatively affected.
Again, I know. maybe I shouldn't be making fun of this. I don't know. You know what it reminds me of? I actually have to take us on just a little detour here, and I hope that you'll appreciate this and find it as funny as I did. Some of you might even remember this, some of these couple of things I'm going to show you, but it reminds me of Miss South Carolina from years ago, I think in like 2007. That answer, I mean, obviously Miss South Carolina is far worse than Amber Heard's way of speaking in this, but it just kind of was shades of, I don't know, sort of reminded me of it.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future for our children.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Oh my God. Oh, and it will help the Iraq and the South Africa, such as, and then what I love is how as soon as she finishes that completely unintelligible, like mindless babbling, stringing together of things that don't fit, Mario Lopez, the host, looks at her and very solemnly says, "Thank you for that answer." Like, it's just funny. Now, lest you think that I'm picking on the ladies for being stupid, okay, there are plenty of men, particularly male movie stars, who are guilty of similar things. I want to show you, and you know what, I like Tom Cruise as an actor. I think he's brilliant. I don't have a problem with Tom Cruise, but I want to show you a promotional video that he did for Scientology, Church of Scientology, which I do have a problem with, but the Church of Scientology years ago. And this was edited by the Church of Scientology, and so what we're actually seeing is the best clips from his interview, the best parts of his interview edited together, and it's, as you can see, it's kind of along similar lines. Not quite maybe as bad as Miss South Carolina, but it's a lot of mindless babbling. I don't think he actually says one like real tangible thing in this whole word salad. And it's a little long, it's a couple of minutes, but I think it's funny. So I hope this is not too much of a detour for you.
Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn. And because I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn. And because a Scientologist does, he or she has the ability to create new and better realities and improve conditions. Being a Scientologist, you look at someone and you know absolutely that you can help them. So for me, it really is KSW, and it's just like, it's something that I don't mince words with that, you know, with anything that LRH does, but that policy to me has really gone, boy. And there's a time I went through and I said, you know what? When I read it, I just went, this is it. This is exactly it. Being a Scientologist, when you drive past an accident, it's not like anyone else. As you drive past, you know you have to do something about it because you know you're the only one that can really help. But that's what drives me, is that I know that we have an opportunity and to really help. Look, I wish the world was a different place. I'd like to go on vacation and go and romp and play and just do that. You know what I mean? That's what I want it to be, okay? That's how I would, there's times I'd like to do that, but I can't.
I'd like to go romp, play. I'd like to do all that, but I can't. Okay. Anyway, I think it's very funny. Now, so my point being, Amber Heard is certainly not alone in being a pompous, maybe somewhat vacuous celebrity, okay, but it is an interesting facet of her character personality to point out, I think, and then we see it in others. All right, now I want to talk a bit about, and this was another little insight that I came up with researching her. You know, one of the main themes of the whole Johnny Depp, Amber Heard controversy is the idea, which many of us believe, and which I think that if you look at the evidence you'll see is true, the idea that that one of the reasons why Amber Heard constructed this domestic abuse hoax around Johnny Depp and publicized it so much. You know, she wrote an op-ed, as we know, she wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post, basically accusing him of domestic violence. She did some interviews, she did the girl gaze video and so on, and that's why he's suing her for defamation. But one of the reasons why Johnny Depp said she did this, constructed this hoax, yes, her primary original reason was to secure a better divorce settlement, basically kind of blackmailing him. But her secondary reason, and the reason why she really pushed this narrative even after the divorce settlement, is to raise her profile as an activist, to become a political activist. Because while it's very common for movie stars and celebrities, as we know, to have very strong political opinions, there aren't as many who really push themselves or launch themselves into political activism, you know, going around giving speeches at women's marches, becoming a UN ambassador, things like that. There aren't that many who go to those lengths. And so one of the things that Amber Heard has done, and one of the things that we've talked about that makes her so shady and sleazy, is that she's constructed this false narrative, this destructive false narrative about Johnny Depp being an abuser, even though she was the one who, and the evidence shows and the tapes show, was actually abusing him. One of the reasons she's continued to promote this idea is because she wanted to present herself as a women's rights activist, a human rights activist, and a domestic violence and a sexual violence victim or survivor. All right, and so I think that, you know, we could ask where that comes from, and I think this is very interesting. All right, I want us to watch this interview from 2013, this Vanity Fair interview, in which she talks about her activism. And this was before, you know, this was when she was still married to, or not even married to Johnny Depp, but when she was still dating Johnny Depp. This was kind of just a couple of years into their relationship and so on. And so she hadn't, you know, she hadn't even really come out with these allegations. She was just kind of starting to construct this hoax, or starting to think about this hoax, as we know, later in their relationship. So, but it's interesting here how she talks about her role model for activism. And basically, I think this is where we talked about her mimicking. We've talked about the personality disorder people and how they often mimic. Interesting. Let's just look at this interview.
Do you have anybody right now that you like, actor or actress out there that you love what they're doing?
I can't think of anyone who's better accomplished the kind of trajectory that I admire better than Angelina Jolie. She's really parlayed life in the public eye and used it to her advantage, as opposed to just living life as a recluse because you feel taken advantage of by the general public and the paparazzi-obsessed culture.
You think you would have pursued it if you knew it was going to be this much of a circus?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, why Angelina Jolie? Okay, this is what I think is really interesting. A lot of you Johnny Depp fans remember that in 2010, right after he finished filming The Rum Diary with Amber Heard, where he met Amber Heard, then in 2010, after The Rum Diary, he began filming the film The Tourist with Angelina Jolie. So she was his, and I never saw the movie, it got kind of bad reviews, but I don't know if she was his love interest or he was just kind of protecting her, or what the dynamic was there, between their characters, I mean. Nothing happened between them. Although Amber Heard has since tried to insinuate that it did, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, the point is that Amber Heard's former assistant, Kate James, testified in a legal deposition. This is her official court testimony in the UK trial. She testified that after Amber met Johnny on the set of The Rum Diary, even before they got a relationship struck up, that a romantic relationship struck up, that she began, and Johnny Depp said the same thing in his testimony, that she began to study him, and that she began to plan, to hatch this plan that when they got together for their press tour in 2011, when they got back together, were around each other again, that she was going to pursue him, and that she was planning it. She was learning his interests. She was trying to become an expert in jazz and other things, or not jazz, the blues and other things that he liked and so forth. Both he and her personal assistant say this, and that she was obsessed with the idea of getting publicity from this relationship with him and so on and so forth. Now, what does this have to do with Angelina Jolie? Here's the thing. Imagine this scenario, okay? Because this is how I think things went down in Amber's mind in her pursuit of Johnny Depp. And he kind of, and he and Kate James kind of allude to some of this in various ways. I think that when she worked with him on the set of The Rum Diary in 2009, even though they were both with other people, she was with her girlfriend, Tasha Van Ree, and he was with Vanessa Paradis, or Paradis, however you say it. Even though they were both with other people and they weren't dating or whatever, I think that she could pick up on the fact that he was attracted to her. I'm not saying that he was doing anything improper or he was trying to cheat on his wife or anything, but you can just, even if you're faithful to your partner, there are times when you're around other people and there's just kind of an energy there, even if you're not overtly flirting or you're not, carrying on with anything, right? It's just normal and natural. But I think that she picked up that he was attracted to her, and he's claimed that he was attracted to her the first time he saw her when he auditioned her for the role. But I think that she knew that he was attracted to her, and I think that the wheels started to turn at that point, that she planned to pursue him later, or she was setting in motion, or she wanted to set in motion, or this design that she was coming up with to do this. And maybe also because she genuinely liked him and stuff. I mean, we can talk about people like narcissists and stuff, and they have a false shell and that they don't really love like normal people do, but they do. As we know, they do feel some degree of emotions like affection and their version of love, even if it's not a healthy version, so on. So, she might have had a very genuine, not genuine, but don't come at me here, but she might have had some genuine feelings as well, not just cold calculating, but at any rate, a mixture of these things. But my point is that I think the wheels were already turning when they worked together in 2009, and that she was anticipating wanting to go after him, and when she got things all sort of her ducks in a row, and when they got back together in 2011 for the press tour. And what event occurred between their working together on The Rum Diary in 2009 and their getting together for the promotional press tour in 2011? Well, what occurred is that Johnny Depp filmed The Tourist with Angelina Jolie. And I think that what happened is Amber felt threatened by Angelina Jolie on some level, because she had her sights, because Amber had her sights on Johnny, but she knew that Johnny would be spending a lot of time with this very beautiful, alluring, and supposedly intelligent and all these things Angelina Jolie, whom I actually also, and I'm not the only one, thinks has a personality disorder, but that's for another video or whatever. And by the way, I don't think everybody has personality disorders, all right? But there are, unfortunately, even though they're in the minority, there are unfortunately a lot of people afflicted with them. And they often go undetected until it's too late, until you've been sucked in. And a number of us have had that experience. But here's my point. I think that one of the things that we know about Amber, based on the testimony of Johnny and many other people, is that she was an extremely jealous person, extremely insecure about Johnny and about her attachment or his commitment to her and all of these things. Well, I think that she was wanting him, or was planning to go after him, even back in 2009, 2010. And so I think that she was watching from afar, but I think that she was watching the situation when they had an eye on that situation with Angelina Jolie, and was probably somewhat concerned or hoping that nothing came of that romantically between Depp and Jolie. But I think that a byproduct of this attention that she was probably, because again, Kate James said that she was paying obsessive attention to everything about Johnny Depp, but I think that a byproduct, and Johnny Depp said the same thing, that she studied him and carefully and it was calculated and whatever, but I think that a byproduct of Amber paying attention to this thing with Angelina Jolie is that she then became interested in Angelina Jolie and became interested in her as a kind of a model of how to up your profile in Hollywood and how to up your profile in the public mind so that people don't just see you as an actress, but see you as like a legitimate, you know, intellectual human rights activist. And I think that she saw, and she saw correctly, that she could get more roles if that was the path that she took. And it came to pass. I mean, why did she get the Mira role? You know, Mira's a very, you know, strong, assertive, wise woman. Well, you know, Amber wasn't getting those kinds of roles in the past, but I think that since she became this activist and this domestic violence survivor and this, you know, proud feminist speaker and all these things, I think that it probably gave her the credibility to get a role like Mira. That's just my own personal belief there, that it helped her. But what I'm saying is, we've talked about the capacity for people with personality disorders to need mimicry or to engage in mimicry, very excessive mimicry of others. And so I think that this whole activist thing, I think it really got struck up in her mind. I think when she was paying attention to Angelina Jolie, due to Jolie working with Johnny Depp in this interim period. And I think that that's where she got the idea. And so I just think it's kind of interesting, again, this idea of mimicry, you know, she's mimicking James Franco with the kind of preposterous level of reading on set, and she's mimicking Angelina Jolie and pursuing this whole activist mantle. So anyway, this opened a lot of doors for her. It did. And it got her, you know, this UN ambassadorship, this activist label, it got her invited to a lot of, you know, very esteemed gatherings. I'm just going to show you, it's kind of boring, but I'm going to show you this clip. She was a guest of honor, a main speaker at this event that was put on by The Economist, and The Economist is a pretty intellectual economics magazine and current events magazine, or at least it presents itself as being that. And so anyway.
Absolutely. Let's start with your personal story as a sort of way into this. So it's often said that you came out in 2010, but it's not quite as simple as that, is it? It's not quite right. So tell us what really happened.
Well, I always say in response to when I hear someone comment about me coming out, I think it's funny because I was never in part because I'm stubborn, I guess, and also in part because I just didn't feel it was wrong. And even though I looked around and realized that no one else was in my position, similar to me, was doing it, and even though everyone around me advised me, strongly advised me against it, it was just wrong. And I would have rather go down for being who I am than to have risen for being something I'm not.
Now, I don't have really a lot to say about that. Again, it's just an example of how she really promotes herself as being this activist. And I'm not saying that it didn't take courage to come out of the closet with her girlfriend and her wife in 2007 or 8 or whenever it was. Although you could also say that it helped to up her profile because she was one of the few that was doing it. It kind of cuts both ways, right? But, I'll go ahead and take that one at face value. Some of you might not, but I'll take that at face value, and I'll say that it took courage, and it was maybe a genuine act, maybe not. But anyway, I want to look at another clip here. This is from an interview that she did in Norway. We're not going to look at much of it because I know a number of you have seen it. It's very popular online. But again, notice how she's really, on the one hand, she's trying to pretend like she doesn't want to talk about Johnny Depp. And, she shouldn't because he just filed a lawsuit against her for defamation. And she's trying to kind of avoid it. But at the same time, you can tell that her experience, her supposed abuse by him is like the whole basis or rationale for her activism, and that she's this representative for women who are survivors of the male-dominated system and domestic violence and all that. And you kind of get the feeling when you watch this that the people around her don't always necessarily buy it. We'll talk about that in a moment. Maybe they've heard the tapes. If you've heard the tapes, I find it very hard to believe that you could not see her as the abuser and him and Johnny Depp as the victim. And if you haven't heard the tapes, I've got an abridged version. It's less than 5 minutes. Go look at it on my page, on my YouTube page.
It's like
Because, like, for many women, men are fighting back who have been accused of this. And your ex-husband recently said in a GQ interview in a magazine, this is not true, that this didn't happen. So the fight continues, goes on.
You know, I can't speak about that. And I have no interest in it. All I want to do is support women and change the narrative and change the conversation surrounding how we as a culture deal with women who do dare to come up against powerful men and the people that aim to benefit from that power and maintain the status quo. I am not speaking about myself. I'm not speaking about my relationship. Why would I?
Why would I? I mean, I have absolutely no incentive to speak about my relationship, except that it's basically the foundation for all of this activism and self-promotion I'm doing, and it probably helped to get me the role of Mira, my most important and lucrative role to date. But why would I talk about Johnny Depp? Come on. You know, it's interesting too, the guy sitting next to her, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but when she, at the end, it almost looked like he was kind of sighing or kind of cutting his eyes or rolling his eyes a bit to the side. And it's very subtle because he knows he's on camera, but I thought I caught just a whiff of something. Let's look at it again, slightly slow down, and you tell me if you see. I'm just focusing in on his face while she's talking there at the end.
I'm not speaking about my relationship. Why would I? I am here.
I don't know. It's just this slight sort of, you know, kind of like shifting eyes to the side and sort of a tightening of the mouth. He looks like a little skeptical, but anyway. And then I want to show you this clip. This is she promotes herself as a paid speaker, and apparently she is signed with a speaking agency or whatever you want to call it, but where people can hire her for like $37,000 a pop to speak on domestic violence and other human rights issues. So anyway, this is a clip from her speaking at a women's march in 2019. And I believe this was right before the tapes came out. So I don't know if she's still being invited to a lot of these things, or if since people have heard the tapes, they're not inviting her so much anymore. But again, you know, you'll notice, I'm not showing you like the whole speech or anything, but you'll notice it's very annoying, the stuff that she's saying, and the way that she's it's clearly talking about Johnny Depp and presenting herself as a victim of Johnny Depp. And, oh, I'm so oppressed by men and the patriarchy and all of that. And I wanted to show you a little bit of this. The intro to this clip is her arriving to the event with Bianca. You know, nothing particularly that fascinating, but it's just kind of, to me, it's kind of interesting to people who follow this. You can see her hanging out with Bianca and them entering the speech together. And then it transitions into her giving the speech. We're just going to watch a bit of that, and then I'll comment on it.
We are here to make sure we recognize all the power we have when we come together, all the progress we made in doing so, and to recognize how much we still have to go to see that full equality, that's full equality, is a reality for all of us. A few years ago, I, like you, awoke to a world that was starting to catch flame. It started slowly. I arose from my bed one day, a few years into my own private battle, and I smelled the smoke. I had for years walked with tired and weary feet into battle every single day, alone, privately, longing for a different kind of world than the one in which I used to live. One that reminded me that despite all that I had done and fought for, all I had said and survived for before and through my very public, heart-wrenchingly lonely battle for justice, that I a woman would never truly see it. That my voice couldn't fully count. That despite what it took for me to stand up and finally raise my voice and to speak my truth, it didn't really matter. The deck was stacked against me in ways I couldn't begin to imagine. I learned what many women inherently know before they reach adulthood, that in my speaking out, instead of aid, support, respect, I would be met instead with hostility, skepticism, and shame.
Yes, you were met with skepticism and hostility because, Amber, because it was obvious that you were not telling the truth, especially when the tapes came out. You know, it's no mystery where the hostility is coming from. It's not just random Amber haters, and no, it's not people who are so in love with Johnny Depp that they can't see straight, all right? You know, what is her I mean, just such an aggressive, aggrieved, you can tell she is such an aggrieved woman. She has had, I know that she had a really rough upbringing, like with her in semi-poverty, and her father was abusive, and that's part of the reason, unfortunately, I talk about this in one of my other videos, that she is the way that she is, right? And so I'm not minimizing that early upbringing, but the life that she's had since then has been one of incredible privilege, and she mentions it, but it's like she doesn't really get it. You think that your existence is oppressed? Why don't you look at the common person, man or woman? You know, and to talk about this idea that, you know, this dramatic language that she's using, like, you know, about I awoke, you know, to find myself, I'm paraphrasing, but I awoke to find myself in a nightmare, and I realized my voice didn't matter at all. Well, of course your voice mattered. The media was, from the get-go, was blaring your accusations everywhere and was assuming that you were telling the truth. And in fact, a number of them still are doing this, even though it's become obvious to anyone who takes a close look that you're a liar and you're an abuser. And yet your voice continues to matter. So no, I don't think that the issue is that you are oppressed or that your voice is repressed or anything like that, or you're being persecuted or what have you. I mean, but what is this? It's projection. And it's taking actually what she's done and doing, and it's projecting that behavior onto other people. And this is very, and you know, this kind of projection, also this kind of sense of being aggrieved, and almost this sense that everybody is out to get you, or that people are hurting you or oppressing you. I mean, this is characteristic of a number of personality disorders that she was diagnosed with. And you know, you can look it up, but you know, everything from narcissists to borderlines tend to suffer from a high sense of feeling aggrieved. They tend to see people in black and white, black being that, oh, this person's no good, or this person talks shit about me, or this person doesn't like me, and they tend to often see things where they're not. All right? And so anyway, I just think that's interesting. Now, this is just kind of a random clip, but I wanted to show this to you. This was on someone's Instagram, but here she is crying about a Kamala Harris speech.
Out in record numbers to make your voices heard. And I know times have been challenging, especially the last several months.
Now, I want to get into a bit of a discussion about Amber's sister and also Amber's ex-wife, Tasha Van Ree. But before that, I wanted to show you a clip from Entertainment Tonight, because as I was doing the background research for this video, I came across an incident that probably some of you are familiar with who know about all this stuff even more than I do. But I thought it was kind of a bizarre or sort of strange event, and I wish that we knew what was behind it, because probably it's kind of an interesting story. But I'll let it speak for itself. We'll just watch it, and like I said, I'm about to start talking a bit about a couple of Amber's friends and her sister, and so I'm starting off with this just because it was kind of a strange little anecdote or story I came across when I was researching this topic.
Amber Heard leaves an event due to a serious emergency. The 30-year-old actress attended the Unite for Humanity Gala in Beverly Hills Friday night, where she was being honored for her humanitarian work with the American Civil Liberties Union, when she abruptly left before receiving the award. Amber's friends Cara Delevingne and Io Tillett accepted the award on her behalf. According to E! News, Io explained the Justice League star's departure while on stage, saying, quote, "I've never seen Amber nervous, and I've known her quite intimately for a long time. For her to have to leave means that it was a very serious emergency." E.T. has reached out to Heard's reps for comment.
Anyway, so I wanted to talk about a couple more things here, and I think that I tried to save the most interesting stuff for the end. But I want to talk about her relationship with her sister a bit more, and also her relationship with Tasha. Just, you know, I talk about them a lot in my video, Amber Heard's Friends, so check that video out for some interesting clips of them, and you can see them talking, and more information about her relationship with her sister and with her ex-wife, Tasha. But I did want to show you something from an interview and talk about it a little bit, and then talk about a couple of other things. So let's look at this clip again from the Vanity Fair interview where she talks about her sister.
My parents in school once were called in, and they asked them about me being such an artist, and, you know, can I maybe channel that into, like, more productive things like, you know, math or science or something. And my parents were like, it was this, like, almost apologetic attitude, like, we don't know where she gets this, like, acting thing, like, she wants to be in theater, and I don't know, it's like, we don't know if she gets it.
Is your younger sister out here still? I remember meeting her a couple. Is she going to be an actress, or is she kind of deciding?
I mean, I think she sees kind of like all the BS that I have to go through, the ups and the downs, and I think that my sister sees that and is fine just eating popcorn in the stands and then doing her own thing.
Yeah, Whitney, her sister, was so okay with doing her own thing and not getting into the Hollywood life that she tried to film a pilot for a reality show. So she tried to be on a reality show. And in fact, if you'll look at my video on Amber Heard's Friends, there's, as a number of you know, there's video footage of Whitney with bruises on her body, and the people around her on this reality show that's being filmed are like, I can't believe that Amber beat you up, or why did you take that ass whooping? And man, she really beat your ass. So, you know, she's aggressive with everyone, Amber, in her life, those who are close to her, including her sister, who was apparently terrified of her, according to testimony in court. Now, this is a picture here of Amber. I'm sorry the quality's not very good, but I liked the picture anyway. This is a picture of Amber, brunette Amber, with Tasha, her ex-wife, on the right. And then on the left, the blonde hair, is Whitney, her sister. And I just wanted to say that I think that it's interesting, you know, to think about Whitney as being a kind of a big question mark in this. The question being, you know, to what degree is Whitney kind of a battered sister in this, and basically just cowed by Amber, and is basically helping her out of fear or out of some sense of residual sisterly obligation? And to what extent is she doing it because she's a more conniving person who wants to continue getting the perks of having a movie star sister? You know, it must be nice. You know, Amber said she likes to sit in those stands and watch from the sidelines. Well, that must be kind of nice when you're getting to go on, you know, to the premieres sometimes, or the trips and the different junkets, and you're getting to enjoy some of the high life. But on the other hand, I don't feel comfortable assuming that. I do think that my analysis shows, I do this in the other video, shows that Whitney probably has this unhealthy codependent relationship with Amber, and probably genuinely feels like she loves her and can't betray her and all of that, and it's getting her in trouble. Now, Tasha, what I wanted to say about Tasha, and again, I say more about her in the other video, Amber Heard's Friends, so check it out. But I think it's interesting how, like I said earlier, how Paige, Amber's mother, referred to Tasha as Trash Tasha, that was not my impression of Tasha from what I have read of her bio and what I have seen of her in interviews and stuff. She struck me as being a rather accomplished person and sophisticated and stuff. And so it's interesting that Paige refers to her as Trash Tasha. I wonder if, you know, we think about Amber Heard as being the, quote, trailer park type. That's what she calls herself too. She says she can get trailer park really fast. Well, yes, she can. But we think of her as being this this sort of shady or person, not because she was in a trailer park, but because she has that trailer park temper that she talks of, her term she uses, and so forth. But and this, you know, and this problematic, deceptive character. But I wonder if maybe Tasha as well has shady aspects to her character, or prominent shady aspects to her character, or maybe she's not quite the innocent victim in this. It's interesting. I mean, I think that she was a victim of Amber Heard's violence, but in terms of Tasha's role in perpetuating this conspiracy or this hoax against Johnny Depp, you know, Tasha had the opportunity to come out and verify that Amber Heard abused her in their relationship. Especially, she had the opportunity because it came out in the press that Amber had been arrested for it. And instead, Tasha chose to claim that the arresting officer was homophobic, and that's why she had arrested Amber. And then, of course, it came out that the arresting officer was gay. And so that was bullshit. But my point being, you know, I don't know. I just think it's interesting how Paige refers to her, Amber's mother refers to her as Trash Tasha. Here, I couldn't find any footage of Amber and Tasha except for them walking to and from a restaurant. Except for this, and I know the quality is really bad. This is the best I could get. It's very short, but here's Amber getting an award in, I think, 2010 from a Texas Film Society or Dallas Film Society, and she acknowledges both her mother and Tasha, her parents and Tasha in the audience.
I'd like to thank especially Derek Ford. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and giving me a film I could really work on and be proud of. I'd like to thank Tasha, and I'd like to thank my mother who's in the audience, and thanks, Mom. Thank you.
You can see Tasha in the hat in the audience. Anyway, it's just a couple of my observations about that. And like I said, if you want to hear more and other observations and see some footage and interviews and stuff, go look at the Amber Heard's Friends video. There's also a couple of interview clips that I came across, and this is kind of on a different subject somewhat, but it's interesting how in both of these interview clips, she talks about her fondness for fights, for fighting, and for friction. I think that's interesting because one of the things that really came across in the audio recordings that she made with Johnny Depp when they're arguing is how much she really needs to fight, like how much she likes that. And on some level, and Johnny Depp even said that to a friend of his. He says the wifey likes to hit, likes to fight. Anyway, and look at these two interview clips here.
You would have. It was what you wanted.
I love so much the inconsistency and the travel, and I love very much the struggle that you're constantly you're constantly put in a state of fight or flight. It's a constant struggle. So I don't know if I could have it any other way. Fast cars and, you know, or muscle cars and fist fights are kind of part of the gig where I come from.
We got a fight coming.
Here's my final question. So we've talked some about Amber Heard's background. We've talked about some of her friends and her associates, and we've talked about the way that she presents herself and what I think is a kind of a narcissistic false impression, and also some of the mimicry that I think she's engaged in, and so forth. Some of these different characteristics and ways in which she's, you know, roped in Johnny Depp and maybe Elon Musk as well. But here's what I want to end with, is I just wonder, I wonder where she is at right now with all of this, because psychologically, I mean, and in terms of her stamina for what she's gotten herself into, because this has been going on for a while now. I think that she thought that it would go away at some point. I think that she really thought when she won the UK trial. And if you don't know about that, or you want to know why that happened or whatever, check out my video, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard Explained Part 2, and I get into the UK trial. But I think that she thought when she quote unquote won the UK trial, at least in the public mind. Not in the public mind, I'm sorry. When she won the UK trial, so to speak, it was actually the tabloid that won, but it was seen as a win for her. I think that she thought that this might be over. I think that she thought that that would discourage Johnny Depp from continuing with the Virginia lawsuit. And in fact, there were a number of prominent legal experts and attorneys who were going online and were saying, this is why you don't pursue these types of defamation lawsuits out of principle, because they're very hard to win, and he really should, he's going to get the same result in Virginia, and he really should not attempt it, hang it up. I think that part of the joy that she felt when she got that verdict, the UK verdict, is in thinking that it was a sign that Johnny Depp was probably going to drop out of the lawsuit or something. I really do. And instead, what's happened is that he has doubled down, to his credit. He has doubled down, and he is pursuing this Virginia lawsuit very assiduously. And assiduously, there's another Amber Heard word. It's non sequiturs. No, that's an inside joke, the non sequitur thing. If you've seen the video, you know what I'm talking about. And so, I'm sorry, the audio. And so, what am I saying here? I am just wondering, she must be feeling, I don't care how delusional or full of herself or optimistic or confident or aggressive or whatever she has got to really be feeling the pressure. And, you know, I guess one of the things, and I know that I probably shouldn't feel sorry for her, because she has tried to destroy a man. Talk about systematic abuse. You know, she has gone about it using these different institutions like the media and newspapers and different things. And she has systematically pursued the destruction of his character and so forth after years of abuse. And so I certainly feel the anger that a lot of you feel and understand it and so forth. But I do also have a kind of human emotion at times of feeling sorry for her. And the way that you feel sorry for someone who has gotten themselves into a bad situation, there's, you know, just to kind of like look at her and just kind of cringe and think, man, that's gotta suck. That's gotta be rough. And I guess I have that feeling with her of like, what, you know, she knows that people talk in Hollywood, and that someone as influential and well-connected as Johnny Depp has probably gotten the message out. Not that he's been on a smear campaign against her, but he's gotten the message out through association. He's gotten the message out in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry that she is an abuser and a hoaxer, and that she's in the wrong on this. And you know, her reputation in that sense has been ruined. And she was aware of that. You know, she mentioned that way back when on the audio tapes to him when they were getting their divorce. You know, how do I get my reputation back? And her father said to someone, he got into an argument with someone, I think it was the car mechanic, it's another story, but he got into an argument with someone and said, you know, Johnny Depp is blackballing my baby girl all over Hollywood. Blackballing meaning like blacklisting, like he's getting her taken off projects. Well, Johnny Depp was not actively on a campaign to get her taken off projects, but it's just that word got around, and she, you know, and the publicity and was bad and stuff, and she lost, I guess she lost some jobs, she claims. But my point is, she knows that the word is out in Hollywood. And she also knows that those audio tapes are everywhere now, and that, you know, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people have heard her on those audio tapes acting like a fucking lunatic, and clearly in the wrong and clearly abusive. And so what, I guess, you know, just in a human sense, what must it be like? I just think about, she has to know, or has everywhere in Hollywood she goes, she has to have this thought somewhere in the back of her mind. Has this person listened to the tapes, heard the tapes where I'm ranting like a lunatic and admitting to hitting Johnny Depp? Or has this person heard from other people that I was really the one abusing Johnny Depp, and that this whole thing is a hoax that I schemed up? And you know, and we've talked about how one of the signature traits of a number of personality disorders, such as those that Amber was diagnosed with, is a hypersensitivity to criticism. And so, and you can see that if you listen to the tapes where she's talking to Johnny Depp, she takes everything in such an extreme way. and is so easily offended and insulted and so forth. And she's so concerned with her reputation, what people think of her and her image. So the irony is that she has created a situation that has destroyed, or is in the process of destroying, that image. You know, it's really, it's one of those things that you know, Freud often liked to talk about something that he referred to as a regressive instinct, and it later became known as the death drive. And the death drive is an impulse that we have towards self-destruction. And in some people, it's extremely pronounced. And you know, Freud noted the way in which people have a way of bringing about things that they claim that they don't want. And bringing about things that they don't consciously want. You know, so Amber, the last thing she wanted is for her reputation to be damaged like it has, and to be made this kind of like object of scorn and seen as this immoral person and so forth. It's really interesting how she is in the process of destroying herself, even as she's tried to destroy, through the process of trying to destroy Johnny Depp. And I guess what I'm saying is that I can't imagine what it is like, especially for someone like her who is so sensitive already to criticism and to people's perceptions of her. I can't imagine what it's like to know that so many people don't like you at all, or actively dislike you and think badly of you. I mean, and what an irony that she's brought that upon herself, when that's one of the things that people with personality disorders seek to escape, is the judgments of others. They want to be seen as better than others. Not all of them, I know, but their image is very important, and often they're hypersensitive to the criticism of others. And so now she's brought about this situation where she's going to face these things more and more. So I want to look at this this final clip here. I think it's maybe to me one of the most interesting ones. This is some kind of promotional ad that she did, I believe, as a UN ambassador. And so I'm not sure if this is for the UN or but it's for some other kind of global nonprofit or organization. Okay, so I just want to look at a bit of this. It's a question and answer that she's doing on camera.
Hi, I'm Amber Heard. I'm an actor and an activist, and this is my Thrive Diary. People think I'm, insert every adjective imaginable, mostly negative. Insert, pick anything. But I am, actually, yes, all of those things. I am a jumble of many, 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 many things. A collection of good and bad.
You know, it's interesting how she really concedes in a way what people's impression is of her, right? I mean, because she starts off by saying, you know, mostly people think all of this long list of stuff about me, mostly bad. And then she says, and I am those things. It's just interesting. I'm not really sure what to make of that moment. Maybe a moment of genuineness there. I don't know. And then she says, you know, I'm a collection of good and bad. And the sad thing is that's really true. I do think that there are a number of things about her that if she were a nice person and had treated Johnny Depp well, I do think that in some ways she's intelligent, and I think she does have a real passion and a zest for life in a way, and she does have this aggressive spirit that I'm sure can be very beneficial in some ways. And it's just tragic, and you know, of course she's very beautiful, and it's just tragic, as it always is, when people are psychologically not well or have a personality disorder or some kind of significant problem, and you see all of the potential of what they could be and could have been if they weren't fettered by that. And you know, I look at her and I think, if you had just been a little more in control of yourself, and if you could have just, you know, had some therapy or gotten whatever this is under control to the extent that it's possible. I mean, you know, you could have had a more successful life. Instead, you know, you've got this tarnished reputation, and I know she's pulling in millions of dollars as Mira, but I think that I think things are not coming to a great conclusion for her as far as this Johnny Depp stuff is going to go. And, you know, and I think that apparently, you know, from what we've heard, like from Ryan on Twitter, that Johnny he's sad about that. That's his overarching feeling. I'm sure he's very angry with her as well, as he has every right to be. And we saw that in some of those texts to his friends. But the sadness that he must feel, because he did see a lot of great stuff in her. And I'm sure that the parts of her, the good person, you know, the parts of her that are good and positive and all of that, he saw those things. And so I'm sure it is very tragic that he, maybe more than anyone else, is aware of the tragedy of this and how sad it is, you know, for her as well as him. So anyway, again, I understand the anger people feel toward her, and I feel it, I think, just like you do. But I also feel, I always feel some sadness, you know, for her. I'm not about to cry. My throat started to choke up, but not because I was sad, but I'm losing my voice. I've been talking for so long. So on that note, since I am starting to lose my voice, and it almost seems like I'm crying for Amber Heard. On that note, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for watching my video. My next video will be about something not related to Amber Heard or Johnny Depp, because again, I'm going to try to alternate these. And so I'm trying to choose a topic. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Thank you. Bye-bye.